Hi, I'm Lisa, and I am the Content and Trails Manager for Destination Arctic Circle. And this is the first time we've ever run a webinar about doing the Arctic Circle Trail in winter. So hopefully you guys have all found the website, arcticcircletrail.gl, which is the official website. It's only recently that we've had some information about the winter Arctic Circle Trail on there, and then this is the first time we've actually run a webinar about it as well. So I have never done the Arctic Circle Trail in winter. I'm a hiker, not a skier. But Ernst, who you'll hear from very soon, he has done it twice in winter. And so a lot of your questions at the end, I'm sure will be directed towards him because he's the one with all of the experience. So just sort of stating up front that I don't have direct experience, but he does. And that's why he's helping me out today. So thank you very much, Ernst, for being part of this.
My pleasure.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my title slide here. Again, we have the arcticcircletrail.gl. I'm going to keep referring to that because that's the most important website in this whole thing. But I just wanted to say a few things to begin with before Ernst gets into his presentation. And the first is to give you all just a little bit of an overview. I mean, hopefully you've already found the website, you already know a little bit about the trail. But the winter ACT is slightly different to the summer ACT. It's still the same in that it's extremely remote. It's still very long, but the temperatures get down to minus 50 degrees Celsius, minus 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're looking at very, very, very cold temperatures. And that tends to be on the Kangerlussuaq end. But even on the Sisimiut end, they can get down to minus 35, minus 40. So, keep that in mind. In winter, only the northern route is available. So the southern route we have no experience with, and there is no navigation on the southern route. So we basically say the southern route is not a winter route. It is only the northern or the original trail that is the northern route. And the main way you wayfind on a winter ACT expedition is by following the dog sled or the snowmobile tracks. And because basically there is snow, as you can see, and a lot of the typical cairns that you see from an ACT summer hike will be at least half buried and perhaps mostly buried in snow. So you cannot rely on them for winter navigation. There is the GPX track, of course, but as I say, the winter trail doesn't exactly follow the summer trail. So, for example, where the summer trail goes up onto the peaks, the winter trail just goes straight across frozen lakes and things like that. So have the summer track with you as a guide, but do not rely on it. You need to be looking for the dog sled tracks and the snowmobile tracks. And I'm sure Ernst will talk a little bit more about this a bit later. Who is the winter ACT for? So if you've read the website, you know that we say that the Arctic Circle Trail in general is only for experienced multi-day adventurers. And this is particularly even more important for winter expeditioners. So you must have prior experience of doing a similar multi-day extreme cold winter expedition before. So if you've done lots of short ski tours, this is still not suitable for you. Work up to it by completing a hands-on winter expedition course in another country. We don't really have them here in Greenland, so there's plenty of other places that do. Or join a guided long-distance winter expedition in a less extreme environment first, and then come to Greenland once you have that knowledge. If you've previously done guided multi-day winter expeditions, it possibly is suitable for you, but you really need to understand exactly what you're doing and how to manage temperature, energy, and gear. You must have first aid, you must know how to navigate because you are truly going to be out there by yourself. And if you've done independent multi-day winter expeditions in temperatures similar to this, then, welcome. this will be an amazing experience for you, because it is still, even with the dog sleds and the snowmobiles, there's still, you don't run into that many people, and it is still very, very remote and very, very, very beautiful. So this is not to be undertaken lightly, is the point. You have to have correct experience. What we expect from winter adventures, again, I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, you must have the right experience. And then in order to ascertain whether you have the right experience, please be honest about it. There's no, there's no glory in being airlifted out because you've got frostbite. So make sure you're honest about your current skills, knowledge, and fitness. It's not enough to have done something 20 years ago. Make sure that your skills and your knowledge are current, and that they are appropriate for these extreme temperatures in an extremely remote environment where help is not easy to get. What else do we expect? We expect you to follow leave no trace principles. Those of you in the Facebook forum in particular will know how much I go on and on and on about this in there. And that's because it's an issue. So in winter, pulk it in, pulk it out, perhaps might be a better way of putting it. But everything you take in and on the Arctic Circle Trail, you must bring it out again. So for example, trash. Carry out all of your trash. At the minute there are these blue bins on the trail, they, I hope, will be removed this winter. So they will no longer be available at all. That is at least the plan. So do not use those. And in a couple of instances, at a few of the huts, there are barrels, just 44-gallon drums. Please don't use them either. Again, this winter, we are very much trying to get those out so that they are not even there for people to even think about using. Because this is what happens. If you put your garbage in there, the wind picks it up and blows it everywhere, and we end up with a massive, great mess everywhere, particularly in the summer once the snow melts and we can actually see where everything has gone. So whatever trash you take in, you must bring it out again. And, for the love of everything, please don't leave it in the huts. Also in the huts, do not leave any food or fuel there. Gas canisters won't be a problem in the winter, but you'll have other fuel with you. And so whatever you take in, you need to bring out, because nobody is going to eat open food. And if you want to donate unopened food or excess fuel or anything, then we would love for you to do that. But please bring it to the end of the trail and do it there. There's no guarantees that people will find it in the huts or people need it in the huts, whereas it can always be used by locals when they're going out into the field in the winter as well. So please leave nothing in the huts. Bring everything out with you, which includes toilet paper. So again, these are summer images because these are the images I have, and everything, of course, is buried under snow in the winter. But this is the tallest cairn along the edge of the largest lake on the Arctic Circle Trail, and I picked up an enormous amount of toilet paper in the vicinity of this one cairn earlier last summer. So please bring all your toilet paper out with you. When you, again, I'm not an expert in going to the toilet in snowy conditions, but whatever you do, make sure you move away from the water sources. Our water is very pure here, and we say that it does not need to be filtered, and at the moment it does not. But if people are not protective of that opportunity to just drink straight from the source, or obviously in winter you're going to be melting snow and stuff, but in the summer, if suddenly there is waste immediately around the water source, then that starts to cause problems for people on the trail in the summer. So please do the right thing, move away from the water sources. And again, I'm not an expert in this, but what we recommend in summer for are pea cloths as well. Just take out some of the toilet paper from usage. I'm just about done with my section, so I'll hand you over to Ernst in a minute. But again, if you haven't found it yet, please go read thoroughly the arcticcircletrail.gl website. Note the .gl. arcticcircletrail.dk is something different. On here, even if you're doing it in winter, we do have a section here on winter expeditions, which you should read for sure. But even aside from that, you need to read the rest of the page, because the rest of the page has a lot of information that is relevant to both summer and winter. So please go and check out the website. On there as well, you'll see links for donations and also for feedback. So one thing that a lot of people do not realize is that this trail is not has no base funding. So we also don't have a hiking association in here in Greenland, which means that the budget for this trail is essentially zero. I'm employed half-time by the destination management organization to try and put some management around this trail, try to make improvements, manage what's going on there at the moment. But aside from that, and aside from some very, very, very small amount of money that the municipality has to do essential maintenance at the huts, that's all we've got at the moment. So we are, full disclosure, we have a proposal in to start charging a fee, maintenance fee, to do the Arctic Circle Trail, because with the number of people on the trail in summer and increasingly in winter, we obviously need money to be able to keep up with the maintenance of the trail. The other really important thing, and this is particularly important for people doing it in winter, is that we have a feedback form, and we have one that is specific for winter adventurers. So we have a lot of feedback from the summer adventurers at the moment, but we have very, very little from winter adventurers. And that's partially just a numbers thing, but it's also because we haven't really had a lot of focus on the winter until very, very recently. So if you do the Arctic Circle Trail, please take 10-15 minutes out at the end of it and fill in the feedback form for us. It makes a massive difference, and it is how we identify the priorities for the trail. So I'm currently working on the 2024 report, so this what you see is still from 2023. But at the end of every report, we have a bunch of recommendations. We share these with the municipality and with other key stakeholders. And just to give you an indication, these are the recommendations from 2023. We did all of these. Some of them worked better than others, but we definitely did all of them. And the only three that we didn't were to remove the oil drums and the bins, as I talked about earlier, from all the huts. We did try, but the winter ended very abruptly, and we didn't get to remove them all. And then the review of the signage in the huts, that is going to be done for this winter. And then the final one, finalizing an alternate end of the southern route, which is for the summer people. We've decided that is a much lower priority, and so we're going to push that into the future. But just to let you know that, when you provide us with feedback, we do look at it, we do read it, we do analyze it, and we do use it to figure out what we need to do next, even with the very small budget that we currently have. The other thing we're trying to do is get a good and reasonably accurate count of the number of people using the Arctic Circle Trail. So this has been in place for more than a year. It's very low tech. So basically what we do is we ask everybody, whether you're doing the trail in summer or winter, to call in at the canoe center, even if you're not going to stay there. Just pop in, and there is a post box with some forms that look very much like this. Fill it out, pop it in the post box, and then we collect those in the winter and we can count the numbers. So this is a really big thing, because if we are, we need to know how many people are on the trail at different times of year, so that we know how to prioritize the work that we do, but also to seek funding as well. Without an accurate number of how many people are there, nobody's going to give us funding. Just quickly, there is a photo comp we've been running for the last 2 years. We haven't had any entries yet from winter expeditioners, or maybe a couple. The plan is to run it again next year. So if you are doing the ACT in this coming winter, maybe consider contributing to the photo competition. We do have social media, although we're not very active on it this year just because of other priorities, but you can tag us with Destination Arctic Circle, and we would love you to do so because we do love to see the pictures that everybody takes in our region. And a lot of people ask what's to do, in Kangerlussuaq or Sisimiut at the end of the trail. So we have a whole website dedicated to broader tourism in our area, and that is destinationarcticcircle.com. So all the information you need is there.
So I'm just going to cover a number of things, and that's navigation and communication, how to deal with the Arctic winter cold from a clothing point of view, staying well fed and hydrated, how to sleep warmly and safely, and then talk about some other dangers from the cold. Now, before I start, who am I? In daily life, I'm a cardiologist. I'm now 54. I did some previous long winter hikes in Nunavut, in Ayutuk National Park. I did some winter hikes in Norway on the Hardangervidda Plateau. And I had the pleasure of doing the summer ACT, the southern route, with my son. That's the Viking standing on the left of me on the right picture. And it was during that hike that I decided that I was going to rekindle my love of the Arctic and do the Arctic Circle Trail solo that coming winter. And I did it the second time the year after that. It is a absolutely stunning trail to do. I mean, it is really glorious. I did it alone, again, March 2023 and March 2024. It is fantastic scenery. It's very remote, but it is also incredibly rewarding if you look at the scenery that you get and the surroundings. And it's not only a long hike, but it's also a very special hike because, I mean, the trailhead logistics are pretty easy. You can fly into Kangerlussuaq. You can basically have breakfast in the airport and then walk out of the airport and walk all the way to Sisimiut. So it's not remote in the logistics part of getting to the trailhead and getting from the trailhead, which we have in some other Arctic environments. It is also remote, but you're not ever alone. I mean, almost every second day, you're very likely to meet one of the locals, either traveling between Sisimiut and Kangerlussuaq or hunting around. And they are incredibly nice. They will invariably slow down with their snowmobile if you give them a thumbs up. A lot of them will stop and have a talk. And this is one of the highlights. Beside the nature, it's the people living there. The Greenlandic Inuit culture is really one of the things that make this a unique experience. So from a practical point of view, I think Lisa has already covered the navigation part. Basically, you just follow the snowmobile tracks. And those snowmobile tracks are different every year in that when the lakes are frozen, when it's cold enough, the first snowmobiles try to find a route between Kangerlussuaq and Sisimiut, and that will be the track of that year. And it's also likely to adapt because of the snow melt and the river starting to melt. So the most recent snowmobile track that you can find is the one to go for. Even a GPX winter track is useful to know that you're in the wide environment, but it doesn't supersede the snowmobile tracks that you can find. The best way to be able to have this control and also a two-way communication is to have a GPS with inReach capabilities that gives you both the GPS and the communications possibility, and that's crucial when you need help. A personal locator beacon is an alternative. A smartphone can be used for navigation. However, battery life on smartphones is a problem, and batteries in extreme cold environments are difficult to charge. It does work. I had Gaia GPS on my smartphone as a backup, but I also took the 3 maps with me and the compass. Now, if you use a compass, do know that the magnetic declination in Greenland is a lot. It's 27 degrees. So if my needle is pointing towards the magnetic north, true north is 27 degrees west from that. And so you need to adjust for that if you're using a map and a compass. But I had them with me anyway. The second part is how to deal with the Arctic winter cold. And I hope this will play, but it will give you a little bit of an idea of how cold and how harsh it is. This was like minus 32. Now, if you look at the temperatures, this is a chart from Meteo Blue on the right. You can see that in winter, you're hovering somewhere between minus 15 to minus 30, but you can get extreme temperature peaks. And if you look at last year, for example, we had a pretty rough patch where it went a lot below minus 30, and that was more or less the day that that video was taken. Obviously, I'm not going to cover all of the clothing. I'm just going to highlight a few things which I think are important to me. Again, I'm not a polar expert, so I'm happy and I'm interested to hear what the others will have to chime in, because I see that some of the names are recognized, and I'm pretty sure that they have at least as much experience as I have. One of the things I really like are vapor barrier liner socks. These are water and vapor-proof socks, basically a plastic bag which stops all sweat from moving from your feet towards your socks and your shoes. They are uncomfortable because your feet are wet inside this plastic bag which doesn't breathe. But the beauty is that your socks and your shoes stay completely dry and stay completely clean. And so it gives you a far warmer experience. And so what I do is that I wear them every day. And at the end of the day, you take them out. They smell horribly. I just turn them upside down or inside out. I put them in the vestibule of the tent. And by morning, the gunk from my feet will have frozen and I can simply rub it off. And just to make sure that I don't contaminate my sleeping bag, I have these down socks, which then go over my feet. And they need obviously to be washed afterwards, but at least my sleeping bag isn't completely contaminated. You need a good base layer, merino or synthetic, never cotton, obviously. I'm not making a plug for Brynje of Norway but I'm just mentioning it because merino is sometimes itchy for some people. And Brynje makes this Arctic mesh or Arctic double wool, which is a merino base layer, which is very good. But it's got this synthetic mesh on the inside, which keeps the merino away from your skin, basically making it a lot warmer because you have this air that is captured within the mesh. It also wicks away moisture far more effectively, and it doesn't cling to your skin when you're having a intensive exercise. Plus the fact that it doesn't itch. So a good base layer is important. I have two of them with me, one during the day and one that I use as a pajama at night. I have a thick fleece mid layer. That's the one that I'm wearing here on the picture with my sled and my sleeping bag trying to dry in the sunshine. And I'm also going to already note, no, they look funny, my glacier glasses. They keep out as much light as possible and they also protect my nose. You might look funny, but snow blindness is one of the big hazards and is something which really makes that you are extremely vulnerable if you're alone and snowblind in such an environment. Obviously, you need good gloves. This picture was taken on the day that the uphill slog with my pulka was not going as swimmingly, so that's why my gloves have this strange shape. These are leather gloves with a wool inside. They are a good middle ground between dexterity, certainly also when you need to melt snow. The wool inside keeps insulating even when it gets damp. Obviously, I have thicker mitts when I'm at camp or when the temperature drops, because then mitts are far more warm than the gloves. And then the outer shell, you have many options. Well, one of the things that I think is most important is that you have a good hood to keep away the wind and to keep away the storms. Certainly, if it's really storming, that's one of the things that makes an enormous difference. And then you've got a number of options. You have Gore-Tex, you have down, you have waxed cotton. Now, my outer layer is actually waxed cotton. I would never use cotton as a base layer or somewhere close to the skin, but as an outer layer, in this case, Well, the most important part is that you don't actually need waterproofness or snow shedding because there isn't a lot of precipitation. You're unlikely to have masses of snow, and you're certainly not likely to have any rain. All of the options are windproof. Down is obviously the most insulating. However, if you wear down during a strenuous activity, you're also perspiring a lot, and so the down doesn't actually breathe that well. And if your body is 37 degrees and outside it's minus 30, you will get ice formation on the inside of your coat, and the down will compress and will lose part of its insulation. And so cotton is actually the most breathable material as an outer layer, far more breathable than Gore-Tex, which will make you wet and clammy on the inside. And Gore-Tex coats usually don't have a lot of pockets because they are obviously designed to keep out water in the first place. My coat, I've enhanced the picture of a little bit, has 10 pockets. So there's 2 here. Can you see my pointer if I move at the screen? Yeah. Okay, there's 2 more here. There's 2 underneath here, 2 here, 2 here, and then on the back side as well. And so I have a lot of stuff that I can have very close to me and is very handy, especially if you're taking out gloves, putting on other gloves. And then the good insulating boots. These are boots with an inner boot, which is an insulating closed foam boot, like a big sock actually. And obviously we have socks underneath there. And then an outer boot with a Gore-Tex shell and also a little bit of a gaiter. Since you're wearing the vapor barrier liner socks, it doesn't really matter that you have this Gore-Tex shell because there isn't any moisture from your feet going into the boots. Normal, simple leather hiking boots can be insufficient. This is a picture from last year. Luckily, those are not my feet, but frostbite is extremely painful. It is also not very much fun for the person suffering it, and it also gives quite a burden to the community when the rescue pulk has to drive 3 hours from Sisimiut and then 3 hours back through the night to evacuate someone. So that was the clothing part. And then the other part is staying well fed and well hydrated. And melting snow will be one of your pleasures every day. And this is basically your view in the morning and in the evening out of your tent, trying to melt snow, because that's one of the main things that you need to do. For this, liquid fuel stoves are really the way to go. Gas doesn't generate enough pressure at these cold temperatures to have enough energy to melt snow effectively, and is even likely that in some situations you can't use it at all. And if you're burning gas because of the expansion, the gas canister cools and actually your heating goes down. So a liquid fuel stove with white gas, what we also call naphtha or Coleman fuel, or if you want it locally, ask for Ernst benzene. That's the way to go. And you need approximately 200 to 250 milliliters of white gas per person per day. And that gives you approximately 6 liters of melted warm water. In Kangerslussewak, you can find it at Old Camp, Kang Mini Market, but ask around beforehand because the stocks may be limited. And notice that there's an extra S here. I have 2 stoves with me. Because if one stove fails, you basically are out of water. So I have 2 stoves with me and I know how to repair them, and I have the maintenance kit with me. Obviously, if you're in a group, then 2 stoves for the entire group is fine as well. But if you're solo, then my only option is to carry 2 stoves. And obviously quite a few thermos flasks. All of my metal utensils have a insulating little layer and then duct tape around it, because grabbing all metal utensils at minus 30 will give you a frostbite very easily. And then there's a balance between keeping the wind out or melting close to your tent. If you melt close to your tent, you have better shelter, you're using less fuel, but you have more condensation inside of your tent, which is your biggest enemy, and you have more carbon monoxide. And one of the reasons that I'm using a kettle is that it's easier to pour, but also the spout is smaller, and so you're losing less vapor that is going inside your tent and coating the complete inside of your tent with a snow layer. Then for food, food is one of your big parts of what you will be taking with you. I have a substantial 800 kilocalorie meal in the evening, a good breakfast in the morning as well. You will see that there are actually 3 bags for breakfast for each 2 days, because the breakfast portions are only 400-500 kilocalories, and that's really not enough for in the morning. And there's also these tubes of condensed milk. So I drink my coffee with half a tube of condensed milk. That gives you also quite a lot of energy. And then in the afternoon, that's the bottom row. It's basically a light meal, a lot of energy bars and chocolate and nuts, which are not yet on the picture. And then absolutely crucial for me, those 3 bottles that you see here, the red bottles, those are 3 bottles of Tabasco, because otherwise I absolutely miss the freshness and the spiciness of the food. So those are absolutely crucial for me. But that's part of, so this was 12 days of food, knowing that I would probably finish it in 8 or 10 days. I then packaged everything in day bags so that I could very easily just take a bag for one day and keep track of it that way on how much food I was taking. Lunch breaks can be spectacularly nice, especially if the weather is good. I have 2 reindeer pelts with me, which are on the top of my pulka, so they're very easy to just plop in the snow, have a warm place and an insulated place to sit or have a nap or melt some water. But it can also be an extremely cold moment where you're huddled together, eating quickly and then trying to get on the way. So basically what I do is I have 3 liters of hot water in the morning when I leave camp. The first liter of hot water I drink during walking, and then as I drink water, I add snow so that I can extend that 1 liter towards 2 liters. Once I reach the afternoon, I get my 2nd liter of hot water. That's then to make my afternoon break meal. And then I can extend that again with water. And then my 3rd bottle, I try to have at least half of it when I reach camp so that I immediately have some hot water. And that it also helps starting the snow melting process, because you always put a small layer of water before adding the snow. If you have liquid food or anything liquid, freeze test it. Put it in your freezer, including your toothpaste. You don't want to find out that your toothpaste is frozen solid and you will not be able to brush your teeth for 10 days. So I put everything that could potentially freeze in the freezer, and if it still worked, then it went with me to Greenland. The other part, of course, is that you want a satisfying night where you can rest and be warm. Now, obviously, you can look at the huts. However, some of those huts, for example, Hundesø is not really a hut. It's more an abandoned caravan, which is more of a home for a pair of Arctic foxes for the moment. It's really not a nice place to stay. And some of the huts are quite far apart, especially because the northern route basically takes Lake Tassersuaq. So it bypasses one of the huts in parts in winter. And obviously, you're not always sure that you're going to reach a hut. This is a enlargement so that you can clearly see the huts. Again, only northern route in winter, but that has already been said. This is Katifik hut, one of the nice huts, but it's a small hut. My hiking poles are here. This basically seats 3 or 4 people at a pinch, but not a lot more. There are bigger huts. This one is the lake house. This is one of the really nice huts where there's lots of place and you can sleep many people. The huts have heating elements, but these are basically only used by the locals. These kerosene stoves are not easy to operate. They're hazardous. The locals know how to use them and they have the fuel. So don't try to operate them on yourself. And if you find fuel, you're using somebody else's fuel that they've left there for their own contingencies. But if the locals are there, and that is one of the really great places, I mean, they will also drop by from with their snowmobiles, and you can have really nice meetings. And I had the pleasure of meeting these people on the trail and also spending some time afterwards in Sisimiut. Then it's a great moment to spend some time in the huts, socialize and dry out your gear. So the huts, just to be clear again, they are not heated. They are as cold as a tent outside. Actually, a tent is probably somewhat warmer because it's a slightly smaller space that you can heat with your body warmth. The kerosene stoves, please don't try to use them except if you really know what you're doing. Some of them are very small and there's no guarantee that you will be able to reach a hut. If you get a whiteout, the hut may be 5 kilometers away, you probably will not reach it. So you need to carry a winter tent, at least to make a shelter in all possible circumstances. These were the two tents that I had, the one in 2023 and in 2024. Basically, the tent is not so much the problem. If you have a good winter tent, it will do. But what you really need is the way to fix the tent towards the floor. And this is on the lake ice. As you can see, there's a very shallow layer of snow. That's not enough for snow stakes. Luckily, I had ice screws that I could screw into the lake ice. And classic pegs that you see here, well, they're there for show, basically, because they are in 5 centimeters of snow and they have no holding power at all. And so basically, you need tent stakes for the lake ice. And I used a combination of ice screws and then tubes that I could put in a hole that I made with one of the longer ice screws. That works extremely well. If you get snow and the snow is thick enough, then you can use snow stakes. And these are also one of the things that I would absolutely bring with me. And that still leaves permafrost. Permafrost is the most difficult part because your ice screws will be completely eaten up by the frozen stones and the frozen sand. Snow stakes you will never get into permafrost because it's simply too hard. What works well there are these construction screws. They're called timber lock screws. They are steel and you can ratchet them in with a hand ratchet and then you can ratchet them out again. And that's one of the few things that actually work in permafrost. The standard stakes that you get with your tent are bloody useless. You can hammer them into the permafrost, you will never get them out again. You can try to hammer them into the lake ice, they will break. And in snow, they will simply get lost and have no holding power at all. Sleeping on the lake ice has one big fun factor is that it cracks and it breathes and it makes noise. You get these explosions and these primordial sounds under you. So it sometimes makes for an uneasy night, but there's no risk, but just know that it can be spectacularly noisy if you sleep on the lake ice. And then, of course, you need a warm place to sleep. A good inflatable mattress, which is thick enough. If the mattress fails, then it's very difficult in an Arctic environment to find the hole and to patch it because you don't have any water. So a backup foam mattress is something which most people suggest. I use 2 reindeer skins as a backup mattress. You need a warm sleeping bag, which is comfortable to at least -35, which roughly translates in at least 1 kilogram of insulation. And then you need to think about vapor management. I mean, the biggest problem that you get is that ice will form inside or on your sleeping bag. And so ventilate your tent in order to lose as much moisture, because that's your biggest danger in getting a colder night after night, as your sleeping bag loses its power to insulate. This is a very busy slide, but this is crucial. These are the standards on how temperatures are reported for sleeping bags. So there's an EN standard and an ISO standard. A comfort standard is the temperature at which a female of 60 kilograms will sleep comfortably throughout the night. So that's a standard woman who is not feeling cold in the other standard and can sleep in a relaxed posture. That's what you want for a restful night. The lower limit, and that's the one that very many sleeping bag manufacturers put out there, but is actually already a limit temperature. That's a temperature at which a 70 kilogram male can sleep, but it doesn't say sleep comfortably for 8 hours. And if you look at the ISO standard, they actually say it's where a standard man is in a situation of fighting against cold. And so you're curled up in a fetal position inside your sleeping bag. You're not shivering. You're not getting frostbite, but this is not a comfortable night. So you want something which is above the lower limit. Extreme range, then we're talking about a 60 kilogram woman that can remain in the sleeping bag for 6 hours without risk of death from hypothermia. So we want to stay as far away from that as possible. Now, it is important that manufacturers are not required to give these ratings, and they can put any temperature rating that they want on the sleeping bag. And that's a potential danger. So if you look at, for example, Valandré sleeping bags, a very good manufacturer of sleeping bag, have one of them myself. For example, if you look on the right side, the Swing CO850, it's labeled to go to -20, but if you then go and look at the real data sheet, they say you can sleep to -20. Well, it will be comfortable for a woman up until -9, and below that it will become uncomfortable. And the limit of comfort for a 70-kilogram man already lying there in fetal position and spending a rough night is -16. So taking that to -20 will automatically mean that you will have lousy nights and potentially dangerous nights. So if you need a sleeping bag, you need something which has a good comfort temperature. For example, this is a Spitsbergen bag. It's a down inner bag with 900 grams of down and then 900 grams of synthetic outer bag. And that will give you a comfort temperature of -32. But this is a €1,000 sleeping bag with a 3.3 kilogram weight. So these are big, massive sleeping bags, but these are the ones to go for. Fjallraven Polar -30, 1.4 kilograms of down is also a good sleeping bag with a good hood. Both of these sleeping bags have the possibility to put both your arms out. So you can have the sleeping bag around you, but still have your arm out, which is great if you need to do some chores inside your tent. So basically my sleeping kit, this is the only good picture that I could find of it. I have my 2 reindeer pelts here below, my mattress, and then I have the outer sleeping bag from the Spitsbergen, which is the synthetic one, and the down sleeping bag inside. And why is that? Because then the ice will form in the outer synthetic sleeping bag, and that dries a lot quicker as soon as there's some sun. And also synthetic insulation doesn't lose its loft when it's frozen, in contrast to down. So this is simply there to basically make sure that my down keeps its loft. The easiest way to transport it is put it all in an Arctic bedding bag. So you have the mattress, the inflated mattress, the sleeping bag, everything in there, also your pajama, your nightlight, the stuff that you need, and you just zip it closed, and that is transported on top of your pulk. And so if I look at my pulk, for example, this is the pulka that I have. This is my Arctic bedding bag, so everything is in there. And this actually on top contains my rolled up tent with the tent poles already inserted. So I simply need to roll out my tent, can have it up in 10 minutes, and then you just throw this inside, unzip it, and you have a inflated mattress and a bed where you can immediately step in, and you can be out of the cold and outside of a storm in something like 20 minutes, which is really good. And it saves an enormous amount of time setting up and breaking down camp, because if you have to stuff everything into stuff sacks, it's a huge waste of time. So this is simply a reminder. And then the last thing is that Nalgene bottles usually don't leak. And so if you are brave enough, you can fill them with warm water and use them as a warm water bag. I tried it for the first time last year with lots of fear, but it worked. But just know that if it doesn't work and it leaks, then you have a wet sleeping bag, and then you have a problem. But usually they don't. And that almost brings us to the end, except for some dangers other than the cold. Well, you need to manage common injuries, burns especially, because you're spending 2 hours a day melting snow, so you're burning quite a lot. And common medical conditions, and these can be quite stupid. If you have lots of wind and ice is flying around and you get it in your eyes, if you get one eye that's infected, you lose your depth vision because you're only looking out of one eye. So for example, eye ointment is something that you need to be able to take with you. Obviously, there can be sudden storms or pitaracs and whiteouts. You need to be able to make shelter, and that's why you need a tent and have sufficient supplies to wait out these adverse conditions. Avalanches, it's not really a problem on the northern route. It certainly would be a problem in the southern route because that's far steeper. So that's one of the reasons that there's no winter southern route. But still, I mean, if you see a sharp incline, that's not a place to put your tent, and you stay away from it. Usually the snowmobile tracks also don't go close to that. I mean, that's obvious. And then one of the questions that we get asked a lot is polar bears. There are infrequent sighting of polar bears, but it's not impossible. And basically, your biggest protection from that is that the local people are living, hunting, and traveling there. And they will see a polar bear far easier and before you know it. And so the local community has been dealing with polar bears in the vicinity for eons. And so that's your primary protection against that. It is very, very, very rare. There are foxes with rabies. I can attest to that. I was attacked by one. It's not fun. The fox in itself is not so dangerous. Obviously, the rabies is, but you can get vaccinated beforehand. Just one picture of one of the many, many fantastic local people that I met who stopped by. They have this tendency that if they see a tent, they usually sleep in the hut. So if they see a tent and there's a hut in the vicinity, they are always afraid that you might be in trouble and simply can't be moving forward. So even if it's the middle of the night, they will just stop and poke their head in and to check if you're okay. And this man dropped by 3 days in a row because he was hunting, and so we were passing by every day and brought breakfast. I mean, it's how fantastic can that be? You're in the middle of, yeah, I get emotional, but you're in the middle of nowhere, and he has warm breakfast with him. So there are many of such encounters that I've met. And then just the other things is that think about your batteries. You need to keep them warm, otherwise they will go dead. Think about lighting in your tent because it gets dark pretty early. Personal hygiene is something that's also a challenge. Your first aid kit, obviously. Sunscreen, absolutely crucial. But the most important part is if you go, do it safely and enjoy it as much as I did. And I'm very much looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Ernst. I mean, we've talked a lot about your winter trips and stuff as well when you get to Sisimiut, but it's nice to hear your perspective from a holistic perspective as well, speaking to someone who is not, a winter person.
Did you consider a vapor barrier liner as part of your sleep system? Yes, I did, but I find it very uncomfortable for sleeping, and so if the trek would have been something like a month, then I would have had probably taken a vapor barrier liner. But then, I mean, you're sleeping naked in a dustbin bag. It's not really comfortable. You can obviously put on a underlayer, but it will get soaked in sweat. So my system was to have the synthetic outer sleeping bag and the down inner, and have my perspiration freeze in the synthetic outer that I can dry out more easily during the day if there is some sunshine. So that's my short answer. If it were a longer trip, and if you don't mind it, if you can easily just take a bin bag and try to sleep in it for one night, and then you will know if you like it or not. You mentioned about 5 centimeters of snow. Could you tell me how the real situation with snow cover looks like? Can we assume that there will be snow along the entire length of the ACT? How much is snow free in there on average? Except for some slopes where the snowmobiles have difficulty getting up and the snow gets eroded, most of it will have a snow cover, and otherwise the snowmobiles will reroute and usually have snow cover. There is not often, the snow is like this brittle ice. It's not the wet snow that you can make a snowball out of. So it's this brittle, crumbly ice, and that's why standard pegs and even snow pegs have difficulty in having enough holding power. The snow situation can be very variable. Last year, for example, there was no snow until 3 weeks before I left, and the lakes froze very, very late. So it's something that you can follow up. There are webcams from Sisimiut. If you go to MeteoBlue, the website, and then you can basically see what the snow situation is like. Can you rent the pulka is a question.
No, there's nowhere currently that rents pulkas, as far as we're aware. People may start offering that in the future, but at the minute, the number of people who are doing this in winter is still very small. So at the moment, the answer is no. You have to bring everything with you.
How challenging is it to bring your gear, pulk, tent, etc. to Greenland? You're talking about 70 kilograms of material. So it is a slog, but it is okay. But it's, I mean, you're basically having to manage the maximum weights that Air Greenland will transport, and that I think that's somewhere between 25 and 32 kilos. Don't go over that, because otherwise they will have you repack in the airport. And so basically you will probably need 3 bags to bring along besides your bulk. But that is indeed a challenge.
Also, just be aware that the allocated weight on Air Greenland is 20 kilograms. So you're going to have to pay excess baggage for anything above 20 kilograms. Yeah. So basically, as a winter expeditioner, you are going to have to pay extra money to bring your gear. Now, don't skimp on that.
No, but you can do that whilst booking the tickets, which is a lot better. To do it like that. Would crampons have been useful, or were boots sufficient? I actually had boots. I did it once with boots and micro spikes, the Catula micro spikes. That was more than enough, so you don't need crampons, and the micro spikes are more comfortable to walk on. And I did it once the second year with skis, but I'm not a really experienced skier. So just boots is probably not enough. With the boots with the micro spikes is more than sufficient. Then questions about polar bear. Yeah, you say there is a low risk of polar bears, but I spotted a rifle on your bulk. Is it still recommended to take a rifle? That was because the first year I was attacked by this fox with rabies, and it took me 45 minutes to get him away from me. And so I had the opportunity to loan a gun from one of the local people to take with me. This is a .22, so it would have been completely useless against a polar bear. I would have had more chance of killing a polar bear with that than if I threw marshmallows at it. The locals say that if you can shoot out both eyes with a .22, then you might have a chance, but they still have a good sense of smell. So no, it's not recommended to take a rifle. I had that rifle primarily because of the scare with the Arctic fox. And yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
The other thing about that is that it's because polar bears are very rare in this region. At the minute, it is not easy to find a rifle to rent. So even if you wanted to rent a rifle, there is probably not one to be had. This year we did have a couple of supposed sightings of polar bear near the trail. There's no photos or anything, to definitively show that it was a polar bear, but we do treat these things seriously. So we are asking questions at the moment about, well, so what do we recommend to people on the Arctic Circle Trail? And the reason the reason the scientists think that there were more polar bears this year, and not just in the Arctic Circle region, but further south in Nuuk along the west coast, is that the ice in South Greenland actually came a long way around to the western coast. And then when that little trigger in the polar bear brain went off and said, it's time to go north, well, they were on the western side rather than the eastern side. Usually they would just go back up the eastern side. But this year, because they were around further than normal, they came up the western side. That's the explanation I've been given. So in short, even if you want to hire a rifle or something like that, there's none to be had at the moment. And we are not in a position to just, be able to provide them like that either.
So basically, I think that what people do is that if you do the Greenland crossing, so if you cross the ice cap, then it is recommended to bring a rifle. Here, because you are in a pretty busy environment because of the local people between the two communities and hunting, I mean, there is this buffer, and that is your best bet for not having a polar bear. because the locals are far more experienced with what they can do and how to deal with that. So you don't need to take a rifle. What tent did you use? I used a Hilleberg Steika the first year, but because your sleeping bag and mattress is pretty high in winter, the sloping walls of the Hilleberg Steika meant that my foot box was compressed. And so I switched to my trusty old Caron next year because those have straight up walls. And so that gave me far more comfort on the foot box. Can the route also be done with a fat bike? Yes, quite a few people have done it. I think it's fantastic to do it like that. I have no experience with it, but I know certainly quite a few people that have done it. Please discuss your strategies for keeping your batteries warm and preserved. Basically, your only source of warmth is your own body. So I kept my batteries within one of the bags, one of the bags of my coat. And my iPhone I kept also within my close to me. Equally so for the batteries of my camera. Batteries in a trail running vest, that's indeed a good idea. There's a comment, if you warm up a battery before using it, it will last longer. And that's also what I did. So my battery packs, if I needed to recharge something, I took my battery packs inside the sleeping bag with me, put it under my armpits, and then in the middle of the night you will wake up and then you can put in whatever you need to charge. And so I would sleep with the battery pack under my armpit and have the stuff that needed to be charged, simply the GPS and the iPhone and the lights on top of me, and that worked well. Is there a special insurance recommended? I'm not.
So I just wrote a little reply to that. So we don't make specific recommendations because insurance is different in every single country. That depends on where you're coming from. But just make sure that whatever you choose, it includes emergency rescue insurance from above the Arctic Circle. Very important, because some do not cover that, and also for these types of expeditions, because some also do not cover, extreme expedition type thing. So it's really up to you to do the research, and that will also depend on where you're actually coming from, where you're resident.
Yeah, and then regarding the road, and that's starting from Kangaslusewakoforsk, can you get dropped off near Kellyville in winter, or at least at the harbor? Yeah, you can get dropped off at Kellyville. Just ask around in the airport, in the souvenir shop, or at Kang Mini Market, or at Albatross Arctic Circle. Talk to the locals, and you will be able to find somebody to drop you off at Kellyville. You will have to pay them a fee, of course. But the road is certainly feasible all the way up to Kellyville. I did it both times. Is it easy to arrange transport to point 660 if one would want to start from there? I think you can ask Albatross Arctic Circle and Can Mini Market. There are a number, Lisa, of operators that do that.
There's a number. It's a little bit dependent. So in theory, the road that goes to point 660 is open all year. However, that being said, it depends. If there's been a recent snow dump, then it may not be passable for a couple of days. So in theory, yes, the road is open all year, and you can arrange a transport out there with pretty much any of the tour operators, and they are all listed on destinationarcticcircle.com. But just keep in mind that immediately after a snowstorm, it may take several days to actually clear the road. And how many days would it add to the trip? I'm not a skier. Hiking, it adds 2 to 2.5 days. But skiing, probably a little less. And especially if you just follow the road, I would not recommend doing the Ridge Trail or the Kangaslusuaq Trail or anything like that. Just follow the road. And it's on skis, it's probably less than a day. It's 35 kilometers.
Well, 35 kilometers is, I mean, I'm not an experienced skier, but I didn't find skiing that much faster than simply walking. I mean, you're still pulling a heavy pull behind you. And so it is slightly faster, but for me, but that probably is my lack of skiing experience, it wasn't really an enormous improvement in coverage that I did per day. There's a question from, did you experience notable difference in foot warmth, trekking versus skiing? I had 2 excellent boots with me for both, so I didn't really notice a difference. The only thing is that my skiing boot is even slightly wider than my trekking boot, and so I had somewhat more movement inside of there, and so my vapor barrier liner socks tended to fall off. That made it slightly more cumbersome. But if you have a well-insulated boot which is big enough and certainly doesn't pinch, it should be fine. Recommended poles if not skiing. Yeah, even if you're not skiing, yeah, I would. Just for stability, for pulling the pulka up a hill. I mean, it can really help if you can put some power. And also if you're going downhill, I mean, that weight of the pulka, especially with a rigid system, is really pushing on your back, and having something to stop you with the poles forward is really helpful. Any alternatives for Hilleberg you could recommend? I am a Hilleberg guy, so no, I mean, if any good winter tent is okay. Yeah? I mean, there's Hellsport makes good winter tents. There are many brands. I've done Hyperlight mountain gear, something on the Hardangervidda plateau in Norway. That would not be something that I would recommend for the Arctic Circle Trail. You really need a double-walled tent with good ventilation, strong materials, possibility to double pole it. But any good winter tent would do. How much do you think the cost of doing a winter ACT is? Basically, you have the flight to get over there. So that's your main cost. And then your food on the trail and some fuel is a very limited cost. I mean, you're talking about $30 a day, something like that, if you look at the packages of trek food that you need. But all of the rest is the material. And that is something which can range from a few, well, at least 1,000-2,000 to a lot more, depending on the material that you need. If you looked at a winter sleeping bag, which is good for minus 35 Celsius, is like easily goes close to €1,000. The Hilleberg tent, your clothing, it moves up pretty quickly. What you said about using screws, snow packs, ice screws was really interesting. Is that how everybody does it? No, that's because the first year I went, I had snow pegs and ice screws and titanium stingers, and I was counting on the titanium stingers, but they were completely useless. And so I really had to do it with the ice screws. If you send me a message, I will post you to a YouTube video that I made about putting in the ice screws and then having the tubes, but just to save money, because an ice screw is easily $60 to $100. And if you simply use the ice screw to make a hole and then use the tubes that you can make yourself, those are $1 or $2 a piece. And did you make the tubes you inserted into the ice screw holes yourself? Yeah. If you take blue ice screws, they have an outer diameter of exactly 2 centimeters. And it's quite easy to find aluminium tubes of an outer diameter of 2 centimeters and a shell thickness of 2 millimeters. The 1 millimeter is too small. If you put a screwdriver through the ice screw, and that's what you use to rotate it, because that's what breaks the holding power of the ice, then you can easily take it out. But so that's something that is easy to do. And did you make the holes yourself? Yeah, that as well. Simply a simple drill and some time.
No, thank you very, very much for that. I'm conscious of time and that we've gone over already, but thank you all for attending. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Ernst, for all of your expertise on all this and for agreeing to be part of this. It's been fabulous to see you again as well. As I say, go check out arcticcircletrail.gl. Definitely read the page about the winter, doing it in winter, but then also the rest of the website as well, because you do need all of that information as well. The thing I'll also point out is on the arcticcircletrail.gl website, there is a page that nobody seems to find, although it's front and center, and that is the alerts and status page. So anything that is important actually gets posted there. So it's a good idea to check that, when you're planning your trip, but also, check back, because if there is an important update, it will be added into that particular page. But it seems to me that a lot of people don't read that page for some reason. Join the Facebook group if you have Facebook, and otherwise our email address for general Arctic Circle Trail queries is act@acb.gl, so you're also welcome to email us as well.